to hear. So welcome, guys. All right, we're gonna wait just a few more minutes for see who else wants to join. So let's see, who do we have here? Do we have any West Coast people on the line? None? We have at least one California. Is everyone in New York area, in the New York area?
You can put your answers in the chat.
No, Isabel is not. I do remember that much.
Yeah, Isabel, I see you.
Kickoff call.
Yeah.
All the way up north in Quebec.
Oh yeah.
Oh, wow.
I was about to
Good
say,
for you.
Isabel's not local.
This is where we joke and say our Canadian friends have given us lots of smoke.
It's better now though.
Oh, it's been so much better.
Yeah.
I'm reading all the chats too. Divya, I split my time between Florida and New York City.
All right, guys, just wanted to reshare the correct screen so that I can look at the chat as well.
When we have someone from Memphis, Tennessee, so we have also, right, just I look at it because as part of the nutrition, we talk a little bit about hydration, and hydration's been key, obviously, in the summer month.
Yeah. That's true, but Jen, did you know that people from Tennessee, I've been working with a lot of people from the South, it's Tennessee. That's how they tend to pronounce it. I know that I'm sure that is not how Chris pronounces it. That is how my old manager at my last company pronounced it, Tennessee. She's from Knoxville, Tennessee. All right, we got a couple of people. Welcome, Donna. And if you guys have any questions that come up during the course of this, please feel free to put them in the chat. If it doesn't get answered by Jen during the course of the slides that she goes over, David and I will be going over it at the end, so don't you worry.
Yeah, and on that note, I want to make it very interactive. We have a PowerPoint and we have some bullet points, and we're going to go through it, but I'm going to leave plenty of room for those questions. So yes, put them in the chat, or you know, you don't have to stop your video, but you know, you can try to unmute at some point. Anyone who kind of wants to interrupt or they have a question on the spot, let's do it, because I think we learn from each other's questions and we make it very relevant for those who have shown up for this Zoom call.
Yes, exactly. So then with that in mind, I will start. My name is not teamforkids@myr.org, as it says on my little naming plaque on my Zoom square. My name is Ashley. I am part of the Team for Kids staff. I have worked with New York Roadrunners previously at Team for Kids for 4 years, and I just came back this marathon season. I'm thrilled to be back. I have attended many of Jen's nutrition clinic seminars, situations clinics, and I've learned so much from every single one of them. So I'm super excited that we have her back. I want to introduce my other colleague, David. You can say hi.
Hey everybody, David Law, I'm the Team for Kids operations coordinator. Been with the team for just about 2 years now. This August makes 2 years. The operations coordinator, so I do a lot of the customer service. If you've ever emailed or called us, there's a good chance someone named David answered you, and that David was me.
And if it was from 2016 to 2020, that was me that answered your email. So I'd love to introduce Coach Jen. She was a coach with us from before I apologize if there's loud sirens. I'm in New York City. She was a coach with us. When did you transition off of being a coach full time with us?
I think about 2021, yeah, and I subbed maybe a little bit last year. So
and she splits her time between Florida and here now, so we get to see less of her, but it's amazing having her give advice, saying hi, coming by to practice. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce Coach Jen.
Thank you. Ashley cornered me and found me at the Brooklyn Half Marathon. And she said, I might be coming back to Team for Kids. And then shortly thereafter, I'm back. And would you do the nutrition lecture? So I'm happy to. I became a coach in 2012 and did plenty of those marathons, obviously through 2019. And then 2020 kind of things changed for me personally. So I was just doing some subbing. And I don't really run the marathon that much anymore myself. But I still coach and train. So there is a gentleman on, Bruce Stark, who's on the call tonight. He, I think, dates back to my first team, my first coaching experience and stuff like that. So Team for Kids, as you all are learning, is a beautiful, unique organization, right? And it truly is. When Ashley invited me back, it truly is. Once you're Team for Kids, you're always Team for Kids. So, and I did say to Ashley, when I run the New York Road Runners runs, I still like to wear my Team for Kids t-shirt, and they stick out and you get to wave to lots of people. Often we will see Bruce on the Cat Hill in Central Park for some of those races. So I am a certified wellness coach, a health counselor, a USAT certified running coach, personal trainer, and a yoga teacher. So I do it all. And I ran my first marathon in 1999 and it changed my life. And in 2000, I became an assistant running coach. And then a couple of years later, I became a personal trainer. So this is something I do full time for my career. And I love it. And I'm still trying to run as I age. So, all right. So we're going to go ahead and do a nutrition lecture. And I always start talking about nutrition with hydration. So, okay. So the bullet points, these are really important for those of you who are write down the amount of water you're supposed to drink daily. Drink half your body weight in ounces of water daily. If you weigh 100 pounds, 50 ounces. If you weigh 200 pounds, 100 ounces, right? Get your nice water bottle, measure it, how much that is. Start trying to drink that as a baseline. That's without running. And that can take time for people to build up to 100 ounces is a lot for your average 200-pound male. Even 75 ounces can be a lot for 150. And it's so important. I always say, don't worry if you're drinking only 32 ounces at the beginning of the marathon practice a day, and you need to be drinking 100 ounces. You just bridge the gap, right? You every day you try to get closer to that 100 ounces. Your bladder will get larger. It'll be able to maintain the fluid. You'll get into you can drink regularly and eliminate every other hour and stuff like that. So hydration is just so important to the nutrition part of it. It's so important to the performance of the running. It's so important for overall health. And it's going to contribute to injuries. So if you're dehydrated, the chances of getting some of the muscle cramps, and sometimes that can lead into even some possible tears, sprains, strains, and then it can get into your soft tissue of the ligaments and tendons and stuff like that. So half your body weight in ounces of water daily, that's your baseline. We want to drink 12 to 16 ounces of water or sports drink to pre-hydrate before the run. So about an hour before, just go into the run hydrated. So those of you who are morning runners, right, get a glass of water down before you go out for the run. And then because we're in summer and we all been kind of talking about the heat, you should definally go ahead and bring water on the run. So whatever approach. So Wendy, I think you're unmuted. Okay, so then, baseline water, rehydrate or prehydrate, replace 32 ounces of water per hour of running. That's about average. Sometimes it could be 16 to 32 ounces, and that's very individual. And we will have to teach you guys to figure out how much water you need based on what your sweat rate is, what your frame is, what your speed is. There's a lot of factors that go into it. So you wake up, you have a 6 mile run. It takes you about, let's say it takes an hour. you get your 12 ounces in, and then you run for that hour. Hopefully you've brought a water bottle on the run, right? And you've gotten at least 16 ounces while you were on the run, maybe 8 ounces, and then just come back and rehydrate, right? Get another glass of water down in you before you go. And then the same thing for the evening runs at 6 p.m. At 5 o'clock, make sure you take a good 12 to 16 ounces of water before. So, and then we want to start experimenting a little bit with the sports drinks, the electrolyte tablets, the noon tablets. There's so many, even there's those trace minerals, because when you sweat, right, you're not just losing sodium, but you're losing lots of different electrolytes. So now there's been some sports drinks that are out on the market that help you replace your electrolytes. Doesn't have to be just a Gatorade. It doesn't have to be a Powerade in those type of products. There's a lot of other things out there. Okay, so we're going to go on to our nutrition. Okay, so the reason we usually schedule this call at right around this time is you've started to get your long runs in, right? You've started to get the hour 15 minute, hour 30 run in. And that's when really the nutrition needs, if they're lacking, start to show up on the run, or they show up, during the run, you didn't eat enough, or even the 24, 48 hours after. So we want to, for a pre-run, right? If you wake up in the morning and go for a run, there are plenty of people who go out with nothing, and they can do it, right? Otherwise, I'd like to see, especially I'm thinking now we're talking starting Saturday morning or Sunday morning long runs, or whenever the long run is, find the breakfast that is starting to work for you. You're going to include some protein and fat with your carbohydrate choice before a long training run and races. And not only does it fuel the workout, it supports the burning body fat as the fuel, right? We don't want to go into our glycogen stores too early, right? So we want to keep the tank full. And it spares the muscle, right? Protein and things like that. Tops off our glycogen reserves. So that's that aspect of our bodies can hold about 2,000 calories of glycogen, and we're training the body to store more and to be efficient, so that as you increase your hour and a half runs to the 2 hours to the 2.5, 3 hour runs, and then anything longer for what takes people on Marathon Sunday, that you train your body to store that 2,000 calories of glycogen. And then we learn to top it off. We top it off before the run and then during those long runs. We experiment with nutrition on, I know exactly what is muscle protein. It's a typo. I just saw that. I went over it. So it's just spares. I think what I was trying to say is, if you're taking glycogen in, the glycogen is stored in your muscles and your livers, right? So it kind of spares, the terminology would be breaking down the muscle, right? So that's what that was meant to say in a shortened, condensed slide. Okay, so you guys need to experiment with your nutrition on your upcoming long training runs, and you need to find out what works for you and stick with it. Anyone who wants to start opining at this point on what they're doing, but usually we have toast and a nut butter. Some people do toast and an egg. Some do oatmeal. Some do a bagel. Some do, the prepared food, goos, gels, and bars. Some will do smoothies and things like that. But this is it. This is right. We're still got a lot of long runs coming up, right? So this is what we start experimenting. And for those of you who might be eating before the long runs, this is the time you probably have to have something. That said, there are people who can go out and do 10, 15, miles, hour and a half, 2 hours of running and just eat on the run. Okay. So that's the running. I'm just going to go into the chat real quick and just see. Oh, that's cute. I love water. Great. She started as a child. Okay, great. Okay. If anyone at this point wants to take off their mute and just share what they have learned works for them in their longer run nutrition needs. Don't be shy.
I guess I can go.
Great. Thanks, Kevin.
Yeah, so a couple things. First of all, I'm down here in North Carolina, and it's gotten super humid all of a sudden. Not all of a sudden, but it's predictable. But doing some water with some pink Himalayan salt in it before going out for the run has helped a lot, like for like water absorption and gel absorption, like down further into the runs. The other thing is eating like a graham cracker rectangle, the big one.
Yep.
Before the run is like an easy to digest, quick carb to get started. And then, sometimes I'll put a banana with that, but that kind of gets me started. And then on the runs, I've just been doing you asked for pre.
Yes.
That's been pretty much the pre.
Great. So that is exactly, so when we were talking about some of the electrolyte sports drinks or the tablets or drops, right? Himalayan salt. So basically salt is going to help you throughout this hot, humid summer for most of us. We'll get our friend up in Quebec to let us know if she's having it too. So yeah, that's why hydration is so important, but that's where the electrolytes and the salt. So when you do take salt in, you help retain the water that's already in your body, and it helps slow down your sweat rate, right? And so it is something to experiment with. And one of the things when we talk about that, just a little bit of that hydration, is for some people on those sweaty long runs, weigh yourself, if you're curious how much weight you lose, weigh yourself before your run, go out for your 1.5, 2 hour run, come back and weigh yourself, right? If you're neutral, then you really hydrated well. If you're down a pound, you need about 16 ounces a pound. If you're down 2 pounds, 32 ounces, and some of our larger runners lose 5 pounds they sweat that much. And we all know it, right? Because our clothes are pretty much stuck to us. We could kind of wring out a little water. So Kevin, that was great. I love the graham cracker. If you don't have a nut allergy, sometimes I tell people just spread a little peanut butter or almond butter on that too. Just that fat, right? So you get the glycogen, but then you have a little bit of fat and a little bit of protein. So it kind of stays with you a little bit. The banana, great choice. I have a joke. The more miles you run in marathon training, the more bananas you eat, because they are, one of those great foods. Anyone else? All right, so let's go on to our next slide. Okay, so nutrition and hydration during the long runs, right? Your runs longer than an hour now need the carbohydrates to keep your blood sugar balanced and the muscles and the brain fueled. The brain fueled is a really important one, right? So we focus so much on the physical side, but I always tell people during the actual marathon or the long 2.5, 3 hour runs, like once your brain and your mind and your thoughts get really negative, it needs a little sugar, right? Once this is miserable, this is horrible and stuff like that, the brain needs a little little beat, get me back up and okay, I can do another mile. I can do another half hour running and stuff like that. 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrate per hour. So a full banana is 60 grams. 8 ounces of Gatorade is 15 grams. Goo gel packet is about 25 grams. Energy bars about 45 grams. I find some of the energy bars are hard to eat after an hour and a half or 2 hours of running. Sometimes chewing is a little hard. Orange slices is 14 to 18 grams. 2 dates, right? So I'm a big dates and raisin person. 2 dates, that's 35 grams, right? So you bring 4 dates on a run and stuff like that. And the soft fruit packs, one of our coaches introduced that to the team when he had young kids, and he just was grabbing the applesauce packs from his snack cabinet in the pantry and things like that. So fruit works great too. So it's hard to carry that stuff. The reason goos and gels and energy blocks and things like that are popular is because you can put them in a pocket and next door, but otherwise just a Ziploc bag, put some things in. I've been known to eat a fruit that's usually in season. So bananas are great. The dates carry very well, but I'll do oranges and grapefruit during the winter months and things like that. So, and then we'll talk about a little post run and things like that. So I want to open up the questions now. Has anyone recently realized that they hadn't been fueling on the run and now they need it? Do they have any stories? And then once again, Kevin or someone else, if you want to contribute to what is working for you on your longer runs, that what you've experimented with.
I can't say I've experimented a lot, to be honest. Like I really leaned on TFK to like send recommendations, but what I noticed with my own experimentation is that any of the goos or anything that had caffeine in it that like did not agree with me, and it took me a while to figure out that was it. So I actually switched from caffeinated goos to the honey stinger gummies, and that was like night and day. I also wouldn't necessarily recommend this, but I run on an empty stomach. That's just me. So I think that also like didn't help with like the only thing that was hitting my stomach initially on the long runs was like caffeine. But the honey stinger gummies haven't failed me yet. So that's my happy place.
That's great. And that's a good segue. So sometimes the goos and the gels and those type of foods, that's why you heard me kind of interspeak thing, like I use dates and stuff like that. If you're going to have a sensitive stomach, sometimes they're pure sugar, right? So that injection, I mean, it's not pure sugar, but it's the whole point. It's condensed, carbohydrates, right? So it can get a big spike. So if your stomach is a little dehydrated, right? You don't have enough hydration, you put that in, and almost like the stomach acids can't even start breaking it down. So that can start to cause the nausea and stuff like that. And that's where the unsettled stomach, and people can,
too, Jen.
need to go to the bathroom. Keep going, Ashley.
Yeah, I didn't realize that when I was mixing a little bit of Gatorade with water, but it had like some sort of jelly or gel or something from actually one of the mentors who I was running a race with. After I was fine during the run, it helped me during the run, but after I was just like in a ball in knots. Like that was my entire body and my stomach. And the maple syrup packets that I think there are a lot more companies make them now. I used to have to get it from Canada, actually. But those are the most gentle on my stomach. And for people that have stomach issues, I've heard from them that that's a good thing to do too, because any of the more chemical stuff, and I'm like a chemical sunscreen gal, don't you worry, but like that stuff just doesn't work well with my stomach. And now I'm realizing with how much hydration I have, it hits it, and it was just a nightmare. So natural things really do make a huge difference if you're on the sensitive spectrum side of the tummy issues.
Anyone else? And then if you run ultra marathon, you learn to like have potatoes, and you learn to have a slice of pizza and real food and stuff like that. And either you have the tummy issue and you run through it, or your stomach is more steely and things like that. So once again, experiment. What I often say for anyone who's showing up for practices, anyone who is running in a group or with a couple people, bring enough of, right, if you have some of the gummies and the jelly beans and all those things, banana and some of that, bring something with you to share, because there'll be one day that you don't have enough and someone else will share and things like that. And it gives you that chance to, especially with like the gel blocks or the little gummies, things for you to try, right? Something different. And that's a nice way to experiment. And once you find what works, right? like a great point on the caffeine. That is, and you know, when we run some of these races, longer races, right? There's always a gel table, right? And you just sometimes grab what you grab. So most of us at one point in our running career will try something that doesn't agree with us on a race, right? So you want to start to see what works for you, because then once you have it, once you nailed it, just keep doing it and then be prepared, right? So as the runs get longer, you have to add the glycogen. If it's an hour and a half run, you pretty much want to start adding at 45 minutes to an hour, and then every 30 to 45 minutes after. All right. So and that most people can go to about an hour and 15 minutes, but then their pace slows down. Maybe the cramping their head gets a little bit like, this is tiring and things like that. So 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrates per hour. Start at the 45 to 1 hour marker, right? For anything that's over an hour 15, and then every 30 to 45 minutes, right? And once again, that's an experiment. Some people are really fast burners. Some people haven't eaten breakfast. Some people have done an extremely great job of carbo loading the night before and things like that. So you're gonna experiment write down what you did over all these next long runs. Keep talking to friends, what's working for you, try it. Once you figure it out, then all it is a matter of topping off the tank. Okay, I think I have one comment.
Yeah, Frank said was
Great.
doing yogurt, granola,
Yeah.
OJ, and I was switching to yogurt, bagel, muffin, scone,
Yeah.
and cream cheese, and a Cliff chocolate shot prior to running every 45 minutes. And he will eat any snack given to him, which I appreciate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's great. Thank you, Frank, for giving that your point. So for some people, they can do dairy and other people can't. It doesn't even mean you're lactose intolerant. So some people can't do the yogurt, or they can't even do an egg because it's like too heavy. So once again, look, you've already was doing something else, and now you're already switching and stuff like that. And you might find that there's some variety, or you're able to do many different things. So thank you, Frank. That was great. All right. Okay, so post run, right? I always tell people, you finish your long run, get some fruit in you. It's one of the best rehydrating, or even like a smoothie or something like that. It helps your blood sugar get up, right? So I want you already to rehydrate, right? We talked about that at the beginning. And sometimes you kind of lose your thirst mechanism, right? You're tired, your stomach might be a little like queasy and stuff like that. So that's where I say a fruit, coconut water, like the good quality coconut water that is usually refrigerated and has a shelf life, because that has a little sweetness, a little calories, and hydration. So and then it says consume the carbohydrates within the first 30 minutes after completing a run. So that could be the fruit only. And then I always say within the hour, add protein to begin the muscle recovery. So have a well-balanced meal. And people will do brunch if they're on the long runs. They seem to be in the morning and things like that. So usually get a well-balanced meal. You're usually hungry and things like that. Often in our group runs with the team, right? We come back, people socialize, and I'm always telling everyone, pack those fruits, right? So summertime fruit is so hydrating. The fruits that are in season right now help with this heat and help with the sweat loss, right? So obviously, right, what do we have? Lots of watermelon in the southern states. So you get some of the tropics, you get some of the pineapple. The peaches and the plums, we just kind of finished the berry season, strawberry and blueberry season. And this goes all the way into the fall, where it'll be apples and pears and things like that. So the fruits, and then even just the carbohydrates that are in our vegetables, right? We talked about eating carbohydrates. It doesn't have to be the pizza, the bagels, the pasta, the bread and toast and things like that. Our sweet potatoes have it, and our vegetables Our summer squashes have the corn and things like that. You're not having that before your long run, but that is an appropriate post-run meal and things like that. So eating in season helps contribute to what our body needs. The foods of this summer, these summer months, are very hydrating foods. Any other further questions? So add protein to begin the muscle recovery. When you finish the run, your muscles are a sponge. You give it exactly what it needs, right? So you're going to start to notice that you do these long runs, and sometimes they're on a Saturday, and then they want you to go out and run a little bit more on Sunday, or sometimes people run Friday, a couple, and then they run on Saturday. You're going to notice that like come Tuesday, your legs are like, when you have to go out for that first run, or you try to do your Monday night strength training, right? You're going to notice you're tired, right? That recovery and age has a lot to do with, for our younger runners, you do recover a lot quicker. But as we get older, we don't. So you have to do some of these things to help that recovery. So remember that 30 minutes to 60 hours, it's a window of a sponge. Give your body what you need, right? The professional athletes, right? They drink their fluids and things like that. And they eat exactly what they ate the day before, even like right after, right? There's room for cheat meals, right? So long runs are Saturday morning. The cheat meal could be Saturday night dinner, or the cheat meal could be Sunday. There's room for all of that. And you can even do it on that Saturday afternoon. But I think your body will appreciate giving it what it needs, right? And some of the cleaner foods so that you recover faster, and then we can go out and run again. All right, here's our nutrient dense fuel, right? So there's the carbohydrate things. Obviously, put the bread, right? And then pasta, bagels, your whole grains, your rice, your quinoa, your farro, and things like that. Protein, right? You can eat your animal fat. You can also be vegetarian and get it with your beans and things like that. And all our vegetables do have some level of protein in it and things like that. And then the healthy fats, right? So you've heard in the run fueling, right, to add a little bit of the fat. So some people do toast an avocado as their pre-run fuel. Obviously, all the nut butters are great. And then those are some of the good seeds and things like that. I'm a big a seed lover myself, making even for your, meals in between or snacks in between your meals, making a little, your own little bag of seeds, nuts, raisins, and things like that. So what is a good vegetarian protein source that isn't too heavy? I feel like beans and lentils can be too heavy sometimes. And Divya, are you talking about pre-run? Are you talking post?
I think it's like a combo of both. I feel like just during the week, especially with like running and increasing in miles, just like consuming beans and lentils is just getting too heavy, and I don't want to be depleting myself of protein. So I'm going more towards protein sources like whey protein or vegan protein. But I don't want to be leaning too much on that because I want to get my nutrients from vegetables,
like the real, and the real foods. Well, the nice thing about it, that's why when you when I said add protein or fat to your carbohydrate choices and things like that. So everything that's on that column of the healthy nuts, right? Your beans or your nuts, your avocado, right? The seed butters and things like that. Making, there is protein, a little bit of protein in some of our vegetable choices. There's sometimes the protein in our bread, right? It could mean that a nice thing of brown rice and a smaller amount of beans, right? Maybe changing that ratio for you personally, so that you're getting some of bean protein that you're normally used to, but maybe not doing as much. And then obviously mix up the beans because they all have such great health benefits and things like that. Was that helpful?
Yes, thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, and then some people, the eggs too. So if you're a vegetarian, some people might do the eggs. You're doing the whey protein, so you might be willing to do the dairy and things like that. But yeah, that's a great question. And Divya, you might be finding that it's heavier because you're really feeling the heat, right? The heaviness of the heat, even from Florida, even to New York, right? Once again, eating seasonally, all the vegetables, right? The peppers, the eggplants, the tomatoes, corn, that's all in season right now. And have all the carbohydrates, right? And you're sitting down to a big, salad of that, it might be enough, right? And then supplementing, with a heavier food to feel like full, as opposed to sitting down to a big bean soup that would maybe be perfect in the cooler months. All right, let's see our next slide. Okay, so as the long runs start to increase, not only are you needing to eat to fuel the long run, you are now having to eat to fuel the recovery and stuff like that. So often I usually say it's like the Labor Day for the New York City Marathon. I often say like after Labor Day, there's an element of you're hungrier all the time. So we got a month until about that, but some of you might be feeling it already. You don't eat anything before a long run. It's worked for you. And then all of a sudden it doesn't work, right? And you get into an hour into the run and the goos, the gels, the stingers don't work, right? And that might happen. So what was worked for you in the past might not work. So listen to your body. You eat breakfast, and then you notice at like 10:30, you're still hungry. So I often say maybe you need 2 breakfasts. You have lunch, and lunch doesn't get you till 6 p.m. for dinner or later, right? So you might have 2 lunches, you might be getting the soup, salad, sandwich and like somehow splitting it up, having some of it at 12 and some of it at 4. And then you do a 6 p.m. run, you need to eat something maybe at 4 to fuel because you won't be done till 7:30 or 8. And then it's getting late to eat. You want to eat, but right, you want to keep the tank full and stuff like that. So that's where you're going to start maybe adding extra, right? So a certain salad that you have, you might add something to it, right? Some eggs or additional protein or additional beans or things like that, or a soup and things like that. And that's fun. Now, remember, when you're dehydrated, it sometimes feels like hunger. So I'll remind you to rehydrate. And when you do those long, sweaty, hot runs on the weekend or something like that, you might notice like on Monday or Tuesday, you're still kind of dehydrated, right? Hydration helps you eliminate, have a bowel movement and stuff like that. So you might find that you're not eliminating as much. You might, find that you're just a little bit constipated. You might find that you have a little bit of a headache. You might have the muscle cramps, right? The Charlie horses in the middle of the night, or the hamstring cramp and things like that. So remember, think hydration first, think hydrating foods second, and then think of I'm truly hungry, right? And keep track of your weight. There are some people who want to lose weight during a marathon season, and I always tell them the time to somewhat lose it is in the July-August timeframe, because kind of once you get into that Labor Day and post, you're pretty much a machine, and you are fueling it and input, output. I talked about it earlier. Fruit can fuel your longer runs over an hour, right? So banana is ideal on most long runs, and then the berries for the summer, apples, pears, citrus, and the winter. I'm just a big believer in real food, whole food, but not only is it healthy, they have the electrolytes and the minerals and the macro micronutrients that your body is eliminating during all this training and this running and recovery. All right, so I would like to continue to leave it up for very individual questions, because as you see, one person asks something and usually other people learn, and then we re-record this. And a couple of our teammates will definitely be watching this, and they'll appreciate that, oh, I had that question, someone asked it for me.
I also want to just hop in before any other questions and say that if you have any medical dietary needs, please go and see a registered dietitian, certified nutritionist. Jen, can you give us some information on what you should do if you have specific medical needs, especially when it comes to nutrition for your training?
Absolutely. Often we'll get the celiac, and that's, people have the celiac disease, and that can be challenging in marathon training because it's so much of the flour and gluten products that we are carbo loading and things like that. So we refer people out to a nutritionist just so they can really get educated on what they need to do. Some people get the diagnosis during the marathon season, or sometimes a gluten intolerance. We do have Coach Dorothy. She follows a gluten-free. There's always a couple of runners who have the celiac diagnosis. The other is the diabetic. We definitely have runners who are diabetic, whether it's type 1, right, where they do have to take insulin, or type 2. And the running can play havoc in their blood sugar. So we really have them specifically work with a nutritionist and dietitian so that they really understand 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrates is too wide of a range for someone who has diabetes. They really have to be measuring it. And once again, we always have a couple team members and plenty of people with diabetes, getting, obviously with the technology, getting easier and things like that. And then I mentioned a little bit of the hypoglycemia and things like that. That's for people who are just kind of feel a little all over the place with their nutrition or their runs or their hydration and stuff like that. And sometimes having a nutritionist look a little bit deeper at medical, doing some blood work and things like that. So we have a great list of people. So if anyone needs someone in the New York area, we can give a couple referrals and stuff like that. But look for that sports nutritionist, someone who, if they're not running, they're helping athletes with sports.
Amazing. Any questions?
Yeah, I have one. And you kind of touched on it briefly. Unfortunately, I'm still kind of working and multitasking. But like with our delayed start, right? So like what, especially during the summer, I'm kind of getting up at, early in the morning, getting out the door, and it's pretty much the first thing I do. I don't do a whole lot of afternoon running. So, there's going to be, a big, if my corral goes off at say 11 o'clock, there's just a lot of food that I'm probably going to personally want just to stay satiated. But how
exactly
gonna kind of manage that, or do you just make good use and porta johns?
No, great question. So yes, the New York City Marathon, it's a late start and the staging starts quite early. So you will be getting on buses at like 6 a.m. for an 11 a.m. start. So you will be packing 2 breakfasts. Now there will be stuff at the TFK tent, and there will be stuff at the start, but I've trained you guys to bring kind of what works for you too. So if your start is at 11 and you have been running at 7 in the morning and you're done, your longest run is done by 10. Yeah, it's a difference to your body. Maybe what'll happen, all of you, is when you have an opportunity to run long in the fall, maybe one of them go out a little bit later, where you experiment having breakfast, wait maybe 2 hours, and then go for a run or something like that. So I often tell people you might be leaving your home or your hotel or where you're staying, to start getting to the start at 6 a.m. Often I tell people just to pack it, right? You're going to be getting on the ferry or a bus. And then you're going to get over to the start and you'll be at the tent. You're going to have time to eat and stuff like that. So just pack extra, whatever you have learned and things like that. And then say it is an 11 a.m. start, you are going to do your hydration at like that 10 a.m., top it all off, right? Maybe you'll take a little a little bit of something with some glycogen right there at, 10:15. It usually takes about 45 minutes to an hour to eliminate water, right? So, and there'll be porta potties up until almost the start, right when they open up to put you on the Verrazano Bridge and things like that. So the TFK 10 has porta potties, so you'll have plenty of opportunity to go to the bathroom. And so you can go in extremely well hydrated, you can be extremely well fed. And I guess we have to worry. Often people are nervous, so they undereat, or they're nervous and they overeat, right? So stick to the plan. But great question, Kevin, because yes, it's going to require a meal, right? And in the New York City Marathon, when you're a spectator and you give out food, and I usually give out bags of Halloween candy. And it's all the European runners who are starving because it's 4 o'clock our time and they're in Central Park, but it's 9 or 10 and they really haven't eaten a meal that day, right? It's been all these high carbohydrates and things like that. So they're just like, oh my God, thank you. They'll take anything. So great question. I'm going to check the chat and see if there was anything else.
Do we have any first-time marathoners on the call? Frank is just on it at the run center, maybe ready for a run, checking us out. I love it. Wendy, I love it too. Jen, any tips for our first timers?
Well, yeah, there's so much of experimenting, learning. It's a lot. There's your first time marathon, right? You've already heard it. Like their goal is just to finish. And you just don't know what it's like. You're not even halfway through the training program, right? You're just getting your legs underneath you and things like that. So ask lots of questions, keep experimenting, keep reading, find your other crazy marathoners so that you can talk run, and nutrition, hydration, and stretching and things like that. And trust the process, right? By the time we get you guys to the start line, you will have had lots of information, right? The Team for Kids emails, all of the coaches' advice and things like that. If you have questions, email it, right? The Facebook group. Oh my goodness, the Facebook group. I'm not on it this year, but that's so much
And
incredible
it's
information.
amazing. Someone put a question about shoes, and within like 15 minutes, 3 coaches and like 6 mentors had already commented on it. It's a really fully supportive place to be.
Absolutely. So, that's all you really need to do is be on the Facebook, even if you're not a social media user and you have to like create your Facebook account just for this, the group environments. And once again, you learn stuff you didn't even know you didn't know or needed to know. Something like the shoes, right? You're going to all buy a pair of new shoes, the shoes that you were going to run the marathon in. You're going to buy them the last week of September, the first week of October. You're going to break them in all of October. You're not going to break them in with a long run, those kind of things. That's all the tidbits. The same thing with the nutrition. One of the things sometimes people are just sharing kind of what works with combo, and you're like, that sounds good. I will try that.
Well, it's a great segue to all of we turn these Zooms into YouTubes after. All of the YouTube links will be on the Facebook group. We have also been, I'm just going to use this as a little plug for what we have coming up. We have an info session for baggage and transportation this Thursday at 6 p.m. We're gonna put the link up in case you didn't see it in the weekly email. We're gonna put it up on the Facebook group. And then next week, we are going to also have a fundraising webinar featuring our biggest fundraiser, Drew Swiss. And we will also on Thursday at lunchtime, for those people who can't attend the 6 p.m. meeting for the baggage and transportation info session, we'll have another one then. All these links, the Zoom registration links, will be in the Facebook group as well. And Jen, feel free to sign up for the Facebook group if you want to. I
Okay.
promise we'll let you in.
That's great. I just want to answer a few other ones. Frank
Yes,
put in a
please.
couple things. He's loving craving sushi after races and the night before a race, right? So that works from tuna, salmon, the protein and the rice and carbohydrates, right? He also mentioned the avocado, right? That's working. There was, I think, a question of just explain the difference between nutritionist versus sports marathon nutritionist versus you know, being an athlete of running a marathon is just unique and stuff like that. What are we up to? 1% of the world's population will run a marathon and things like that. So dietitians often go through the training program and often start their career in hospitals or clinical settings and things like that. So that's going to be a very different style of advice and things like that. So there are so many, you know, and then the sports nutritionist, I just took it down of like, sometimes you'll have a nutritionist who works with just runners, some will be triathletes and things like that. But often any sports nutritionist would have the information, you know, but you just, you know, that's one of the questions you would ask in an interview of you helped other marathoners and things like that. So did that answer your question, Frank? Yeah. Oh, good. First time. Yeah. Okay, great. All right. Well, I will be available for any further questions. You guys can sign off. Anyone who wants to unmute and ask a question or two, don't be shy. Sometimes we've had a nice small group and everyone unmutes and we just have a nice dialogue at this point.
And any other questions, team4kids@myr.org. David, myself, or one of the other managers will be able to help you with any questions that you have. All right, thanks, guys. We'll still stay here for a few more minutes for any other questions, but
yes,
feel
absolutely.
free to hop off if you need to.
Yeah,
Frank, have a
free.
great one.
Very much.
You're very welcome. I love seeing it go one
know,
at a
right?
time. Is that pretty common, people keeping the cameras off?
Yeah. How can I do this?